Alright, let's go through another long box. I said in my other videos, these are comics I picked up the last couple years. Haven't sorted them in with my regular collection yet. So let's check some of these out. This Amazing Spider-Man is from the Roger Stern, John Romita Jr. era. Possibly the best run of Amazing Spider-Man, although I love the Ron Friends run better. Here's a McFarlane issue that I thought I didn't have, but then realized I did. This one has gotten pricey, so unfortunately I didn't get it when it was cheaper. I think I splurged and got this one sometime last year or so. What a cover. Great cover. There's another McFarlane issue. Craven's Last Hunt. I always get these when I see them if they're a decent price. Here's that Ron Friends era I was talking about. Black costume era. Best Amazing Spider-Man for me. DeFalco was writing, Friends was drawing. A lot of fill-in artists, but still. Another McFarlane issue. Alright, so I went on a little bit of a kick, and I think we'll see some of these this year in this box. The last year or so. Marvel did a lot more movie adaptations than I think people realize in the 80s, so Jim Shooter must have got on the bandwagon with the movie adaptations, and some of them are pretty cool. I think we'll see a couple in this box. So I don't know if this comic is any good, but I went on a kick with the movie adaptations by Marvel. Alright, if you've seen my other videos, you already know I'm an Archie guy. So here's some World of Archies. I'm sorry, some Archie Giant series. Jughead. Guarantee this has got Sam Schwartz art in it, which was as good as it gets for Jughead. Here's an older one. Probably some Al Hartley art. If anybody knows who that is, respect. Okay. If you saw one of my other videos, you saw this comic. I guess I have 2 copies of it, which I didn't even realize, which is kind of nuts. What a great cover. Shirtless Batman, shirtless Ra's al Ghul. I hate to point this out because it might ruin it a little bit, but the funny thing about this cover, it's an awesome cover. He's holding Batman's costume with the legs, but Batman still has his pants on. So anyway, hate to be that guy that points stuff like that out. Battlestar Galactica. I think one of my local shops had a few of these randomly in pretty nice shape. This is a Walt Simonson cover. I think he did some interiors on some of these. So if you don't know about the Battlestar Galactica Marvel series, check them out. I don't think Simonson did all the art, but I think he did quite a few issues. Check out that Terry Austin ink job on that cover. Beautiful. Alright, so back to Archie's. And Archie fans, which are probably very few and far between, might know this. But in the 70s and 80s, there were a couple Archie titles that did sort of more adventure type stories, kind of serious, almost scary for kids. One of them was the Betty and Me. So Betty and Me usually just had like fun stories with Archie and Betty and Veronica. But for about 6 or 7 issues, they did these where it was like kind of serious adventure type stories. So I love these. I don't try to get all the Betty and Me's, but I like the 7 or 8 issues that had these adventures in them. I think Stan Goldberg drew all those. He did sort of tension and scary faces better than any of the typical Archie artists. Here's an old Betty and Veronica. Talked about this in one of my other videos. Neil Adams, Brave and the Bold, Batman art. So there's about, I don't know, 10 odd issues of Brave and the Bold that Neil Adams did. Here's a couple of them. The Creeper was always one of my favorite characters. It's funny how Ditko created some of my favorite characters without, I didn't realize it was Ditko, but Butcher Baker, this was a fun series. Recently reread it, and for me it didn't hold up, but for folks who don't know about this, you might want to check it out. It's by Joe Casey, and the art is absolutely amazing by Huddleston. So just for the art alone, you might want to check it out. There's another Butcher Baker series from Garth Ennis's The Boys, so don't mistake that with this. This, I think, is an 8-issue Image miniseries. Very irreverent, very crazy, very insane stuff. Great, fun. I guess it didn't hold up for me because at the end it was just kind of not about anything other than just kind of being crazy and over the top. There wasn't much more to it in terms of substance. But don't let me dissuade you. It's got some beautiful art. It's got some funny, crazy writing. So it might be worth checking out if you're into that kind of stuff. If you haven't noticed by now, these are all older comics. So if you're into the last 15 years of comics, this video probably is boring to you. I don't know if folks know about this run of Captain America. Mike Zeck and J.M. DeMatteis. Beautiful Mike Zeck art. So I love these issues for that reason. The writing is solid, but the art is beautiful. So here's some of those issues from that run. Arnim Zola, Spider-Man crossover, Defenders, who remembers that? It was a great team. They had their own book for like 150 issues. Yeah, so you can see this Mike Zeck art is great. And just before that run, John Byrne and Roger Stern were on it. My buddy told me about this arc with Captain Britain. Really is a good 2-issue arc. This is one of the issues from that. Like I said, I was on my comic adaptation kick. I think I got these on eBay, and issue 1 was like jacked up, not in good shape. So I only kept issue 2. But yeah, these Marvel comic adaptations are pretty cool in my opinion. Here's a Neil Adams detective. Again, if you've seen my other videos, I don't care if it has a price sticker directly attached to the cover. I mean, I'd prefer it didn't, but if I can get an old So Rage comic for less money, this is kind of a key Neil Adams issue, I'll definitely get it. I must have splurged and got this one because these Man-Bat issues are more expensive now. But again, it's in worse shape than it probably looks on camera here. But I don't care as long as it's original. Kirby FF. I think it has some Inhumans in it, or at least one of them. So I had to get this one when I saw it. Another copy of this. You might have seen this in one of my other videos. This was one of my first comics, so it's etched in my brain forever. And I've got 2 or 3 copies because one of my favorite comics, Kirby, just the weirdness of the Inhumans. Love the Inhumans, one of my favorite teams, just because they're all so odd and weird and they're outsiders. I think that's also why I like Spider-Man. Another Kirby, Fantastic Four. Notice these are the later ones, almost when Kirby was finished his run. Those are basically ones I can afford. I don't know where I got all these. I must have got some of these at a convention or something, because it's hard to come across these in the wild, and I don't really seek them out on eBay like I should. These I do seek out on eBay. For folks that may not know, there are some Neil Adams Green Arrow backup stories in a couple Flash issues, so you wouldn't know these are just Flash issues. You wouldn't know there's a Neil Adams Green Lantern story in here, but there's like 2 or 3 issues. Here's a couple of them. So I get these not for the Flash, even though I like the Flash. You know, the art in here is not nearly as good as those Neil Adams backup stories. Alright, so you all, again, if you know about Marvel comic adaptations, you might know of Star Wars or Temple of Doom, but check this one out. Did you know they did some, I think they did a couple James Bond adaptations. So here's one of them, For Your Eyes Only. Just cool stuff, I think, and pretty true to the and I think either Shaken or shoot, I can't think of the other guy's name, but somebody we know did the art on these. So just for that alone, it's worth looking at. Klaus Janson. It's either Shaken or Klaus Janson did the art in these. Again, if you've seen my other video, you know I'm a G.I. Joe fan. And if you're a G.I. Joe fan, you know this was the first appearance of the October Guard, number 6. Great cover. Great way to show 2 teams. You could have just shown, you know, this is Trimpe, I think. You could have just drawn the 2 teams, but putting it inside Cobra Commander's helmet. What a great graphic. Origin of Snake Eyes. Anybody who loves G.I. Joe should have this. It's not super expensive. I mean, it's more expensive than I would like, but it's not super expensive. Beautiful story. I think Hama does the art in this one, so most people probably know that Hama did the art, Larry Hama, in 21, the silent issue, but he also drew a couple other issues, and I think this is one of them. Another great old G.I. Joe. This trio, the dynamic between them was great. Quinn, Dr. Venom, Snake Eyes. There's another number 6. I'm a guy who gets duplicates. Sorry if that bugs you. If it's a comic that means a lot to me, I'll get 4 or 5 copies if I can. Great cover here. Destro. Do they even make covers like that anymore? One of the first appearances of the Dreadnoughts. I think this has some different artists in it. It's really cool. Because a lot of these were Mike Vosberg, who was also great. Second October Guard. Great stuff. As I was putting my G.I. Joe run back together, I realized, well, I don't have the Order of Battle, so I went and picked it up on eBay. Just fun stuff. Kind of like the Marvel Handbook. Just shows a roster of Joes, but just kind of fun stuff. Tom Seeley GoBots. Got these directly from him at a convention because you won't see these floppies in the wild very much, at least not where I live. Great run here. I got some of these, not all of these, but been slowly trying to piece some of them together. The Denny O'Neil, Neil Adams Green Lantern run. Got some great Black Canary stuff in here too. Each story has some topical stuff in it. People scoff at it now, but I think it's still pretty good. Check out this old Hulk. Pretty sure this would be Herb Trimpe. Really good art. Weird, different, good art in this. On these old Trimpe issues. Here's some just some random Hulks here. I don't put these in order until I sort them in with my new comics, so sorry that these are slightly out of order here. But here's a Hulk. Some of the later stuff. Here's an earlier Sal Buscema, the best Hulk artist for me. Angel Medina. How good is that? Different, kind of off, but really great. Tons of character. Dale Keown. You could argue he was the best Hulk artist. I wouldn't argue with you, even though I love Sal. Gary Frank. This is that Peter David run. I really love Gary Frank's Hulk. Here's when Rick and, sorry I don't remember her name, got married. Fun issue. Margot? Mike Deodato. Fly Beast, everybody remember him? I don't know how folks feel about the Peter David run. I had never read it until recently, and I thought it was good, but also kind of flawed, a little too jokey. And he unfortunately he had a knack for like putting threads out there that he never really sewed up later. It's just kind of annoying, but it's still a good run. You know, solid writing. Don't get me wrong. You do much worse. And you know, like I said, beautiful art. You know, you got Gary Frank, you got Dale Keown. How great is that cover by Keown? Oh, and I forgot to mention, I always get mixed up either Adam or Andy, but one of my favorite, the way he did the Hulk was just amazing. One of the Kubert brothers. This issue spawned, for me, the funniest column letter I ever read. And I wish I could find it and show it on camera here. But basically, he becomes one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, and he's got like this whip and stuff. And the letter, you have to read it, but the letter was like laughing at the fact that the Hulk would need a whip or something. He's like the strongest guy in the Marvel Universe. So the letter was just totally roasting Peter David in this issue about the fact that the Hulk would need like this arm plate and a whip. Hilarious letter. So yeah, these are the Hulks that I was thinking, the reason I'm sorting these back in this year, I was thinking of selling these when that Thunderbolts movie came out or whatever, but I guess that movie didn't really make that first appearance of the Thunderbolts as hot as I thought. Another old Trumpy Hulk, great stuff. I think Jim Rugg talked about, because he did the Hulk Grand Design, and he talked about how, I guess I can talk about this one. I gotta resort these real quick. He talked about how those old Hulks, like the Trimpe issues, was kind of just the monster of the week. And he's probably absolutely right about those. A lot of like sort of one and done, not much substance to those stories. But obviously still fun stuff. Good art, solid writing. But yeah, it's not Shakespeare or anything. It is kind of monster of the week stuff. Alright. Speaking of which, here's another one of those old Hulks. Again, these are just random order because I haven't mixed them in. Yeah, here's one with Maximus from the Inhumans. Probably a cool story. Haven't read that one. Iron Fist, if you've seen my other videos, I'm trying to sort of put these together when I find them. So here's a couple Iron Fists, John Byrne art. I think Claremont wrote all these. Always loved the Iron Fist character. He showed up in Marvel Team Up 63 and 64. and I was a kid, and I loved Spider-Man, and as soon as I saw Iron Fist, I was hooked. One of my favorite characters. Neil Adams points out that Marvel basically stole his costume design for Deadman. So Neil Adams designed the costume for Deadman, and this is just almost a rip-off of that. So amazing costume, probably credit due to Neil Adams on that. Folks hopefully know about this run of Iron Man. Bob Layden, John Romita Jr., Michelini was writing, I think. Probably the best run of Iron Man. And so if you haven't read some of these issues, this was kind of the pure old school Tony Stark, not the movieized version or whatever. This is when he had the demon in the bottle, but other stuff, just a lot of solid stories. Bob Layton was kind of the Iron Man artist. Here's some Jugheads, probably my favorite Archie character. The art from these is typically either Sam Schwartz or Al Hartley. So I love this era in particular. Maybe we should crack one of these open and just, for those that don't care about Archie or know about Sam and Al, let's check these out. Yeah, here's Sam Schwartz. None of these are credited, so you just kind of have to be an Archie freak and know who these guys are and be able to spot them. But I know this is Sam Schwartz. He did lots of the Jughead stuff. This whole issue might be Sam Schwartz. They usually, these Archie comics usually have like 4 little stories in them, and often by different artists. Yeah, this is another Sam Schwartz. Sometimes when you're lucky, you'll get Sam and Al Hartley in the same issue. Sam, especially later in the 70s, so this is like early 70s, 71. Later in the 70s, he would do stuff like this with the silhouettes, but later in the 70s, he would do more with breaking the panel borders. And I know people that read superhero comics are probably used to that, but in Archie comics, that was kind of unheard of. Archies were usually strict, 6 panels or whatever, but not a lot of like breaking of the panel borders and stuff. So for art freaks out there, that probably doesn't sound innovative at all, but Sam was kind of pushing the envelope at Archie in that way. Yeah, this is all Sam Schwartz stuff, this issue. Went to a convention this summer, got some books from the K-Fam. So here's a ton of these. I put them all together instead of trying to put them by the creator or whatever. So here's Jeremy's Batman stuff. Great stuff. He puts these together pretty quickly, which is pretty amazing. Here's a jam book, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Grand Design by a bunch of the K-Fam artists. Talking to Gaijin, same group of folks working together to make these. It's another Jeremy Heiler book about Splinter. Probably find these guys on Instagram and get these books. These are sort of self-published, bootleg, or I can't remember which column, but yeah, here's some more of the Teenage Mutant Grand Design. Alright, this next book, if you don't know, you gotta know. Brian Moss, leveling up his writing. Project Unicorn. He's a great artist. He's been drawing and painting forever, but and he's a great writer. He's imaginative. He evokes emotion, but his writing is leveling up. This is one of his latest. You could probably either look for Brian Moss online or Google Project Unicorn or both, and get a copy of this. Reach out to him, DM him. This is what he's working on. I think he's working on issue 2 of this. Love this book. It's an interesting character, a lot of emotion, a lot of soul. What more can I say? Cartoonist Kayfabe Illustrated. Got this directly from Ed's family. Great book. Talked about this in one of my other videos. Love the Madhouse stuff because it's weird. It's different. Most people that know Archie probably may or may not have ever even heard of Madhouse. Alright, I don't want to take too long explaining all this, but I've been on a kick also, not just with the movie adaptations, but with some of the stuff from the early to mid 80s that I had when I was younger that, I've since didn't have. And this is one of them, the Merc. He's kind of a Punisher ripoff from what I can remember. So it's kind of funny they made a whole nother series of a dude who's kind of like the Punisher. But I like him, so I picked these up. I don't think I got a good solid run, because I think there might have been a couple issues missing from here. But Merc, so I had part of that new universe. How good is this? John Byrne, Tigra, Marvel Team Up. That was just when I started collecting comics when I was a kid. New Mutants. This is one of the Bob McLeod issues. Here's one of the Sienkiewicz issues. Or those movie adaptations I was talking about. Don't sleep on those Marvel movie adaptations. This one's interesting. I could be wrong about this, but I think this started off as like a 2-issue miniseries and then like became like an Indiana Jones series, or maybe that was a separate series. I don't know. I think John Byrne drew the first few issues of that Indiana Jones. I don't know if he drew. I don't think he drew the movie adaptations, but I mean, how good is this? And you don't want like the collected version of this. You want the floppies. So there we go. I thought this was the movie adaptation of that crazy Red Sonja movie, but it turns out this is just some kind of random 2-issue miniseries, but it has John Buscema art, so how can go wrong with that? Sabrina, talked about that in one of my other videos. Love that character. I think DeCarlo drew those, and then Dick Malmgren. So Archie fans know that's a little bit of a deep pull, and most people probably never heard of those guys. Malmgren. Tom Scioli turned me on to these, so I sought these comics out. I think there's 11 or more issues of this, so I only found a couple of them. Craven's Last Hunt, always get these when I can find them. Trying to put a run of this together, but it's harder than it seems. This was the second G.I. Joe series. I think Hama was still writing, Trippy was drawing, so great team. Haven't read these in forever. But yeah, I've been trying to put a run of these together, but it's hard to get the full run, so I think right now I've got maybe the first 11 or 12 issues. How great is that Zach cover? Alright, getting towards the end here. Marvel Star Wars, can never go wrong with those. There's that rabbit. I think his name was Dexter. I don't care what anybody says. Looking back as a kid, having just seen Star Wars, this is one of the first issues that, after issue 6, that kind of expanded on Star Wars. The rabbit, I think there was a porcupine guy. Stuff is etched in my brain. It was crazy. It was imaginative. Love that character. Here's a great, I think this is Ron Friends with Palmer on inks, or maybe Palmer drew this completely. There's a great Leia cover. There's that crazy Infantino kind of off model, but still awesome and great. Again, that's etched in a young person's brain as well. Because, like, look at his Chewbacca. Look at his Leia. It's weird, but it's great. What can I say? Yeah, look at his Chewie. It's kind of strange, but something great about it. The Empire Strikes. So this was like 2 or 3 years before The Empire Strikes Back. I don't know if it was a coincidence. Great cover. 3PO holding Luke, which is kind of funny. This was kind of along with my kick of trying to get the movie adaptations. I think somebody on eBay had these, and I was like, okay, this is weird and funny and great, and these covers are great. I think that's a Sienkiewicz cover. So I haven't read these yet, but this looks exactly like one of the Transformers, but it's Star Wars. This is an adaptation of that Tarzan movie that came out in 83. John Buscema doing Tarzan for Marvel. Good as it gets right there. Alright, the last few of these in this box. Some old Transformers. I never really got into this when I was a kid. I was into G.I. Joe. This series didn't really hit with me. But lately I've been going back and trying to get some of these. So again, it's hard to put together a run of these, especially in North Carolina where all the comic shops suck. But been trying to put together some of these. Don't know much about the art inside. Like here's a Trimpy cover, but I don't think he drew the interiors for any of these. I remember this original character. So this is one of those deals where Marvel creates this character and then they have the rights to that character but not the rights to the Transformers. So that kind of, that's a great cover right there. Salcioli at a convention, he had a few of these, not the whole run. These are very hard to find, so I grabbed the ones that he had. Tunnel Rat, it's great. Been watching Brian Moss's channel. He's been talking about Bachello, I think did some, yeah, Bachello. So that's why I grabbed these, just for the art. Unfortunately, so I still love the art, but unfortunately you got Brian Bendis writing, who's an awful writer. So you got Bachello drawing, incredible artist, great character designs, and you open this comic up, any of these comics, and it's a bunch of talking heads and maybe one page of action or one page of a full figure. So you got an artist like Bachello, you're a writer, and you say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to have Bachello write talking heads for issue after issue after issue. And the crazy thing, I was looking through these, I think the one issue that has action is like one of the fill-in issues. But anyway, still got some Bachello art. Look how great that is. So it's worth it just for that. And last but not least, I got a crazy random Watchmen issue number 7.